Welcome to WTF is Web3, where we untangle the uncertainties of Web3 technologies. Be sure to check out the show notes for more information, giveaways, and ways to stay in touch. You're also going to want to make sure that you're subscribed to our podcast, our YouTube channel, and our private group so you don't miss out on exclusive content, freebies, and much more. If this episode seems like it was stripped out of a longer conversation, that's because it was. This is what we call a shallow dip, because it's basically the opposite of a deep dive, where we're going to give you a brief explanation of a concept, a term, or a topic that we just felt you would dig without having to listen to an entire episode. However, if you do want to listen to the entire episode, I invite you to check out the show notes, because that will get you to that longer episode and you can hear everything in context of the original conversation. Now that we've got that explanation out of the way, let's jump into the episode.
But you just brought up just blockchain in general. So blockchain is really important. It's a big aspect of Web3 and all these things able to do what they're doing. Do you want to talk about kind of blockchain and what it means from a big picture?
Yeah, and I'll try to be brief because I think we were shooting for a relatively short podcast, but if you're still listening, hopefully you're learning. Blockchain, if you're not familiar, the way I look at it is they often refer to it as a ledger. And imagine a ledger of transactions that is replicated at multiple points. And these would be nodes in many instances. So these nodes all have a copy of the ledger, and the ledger is keeping track of all the transactions. Now, why this is so invaluable, and especially from a security and credibility and transparency aspect, is this ledger is able to be something that is public, because the accounts, the wallets that are conducting these transactions are relatively anonymous. So you don't know that John Smith sent money to Susie Q, but you know that this wallet sent crypto, some kind of coin, or had some transaction with this wallet, and that is a public ledger. Then that is also replicated across the nodes. So now if someone tries to create a fake transaction, that is automatically, before it is added to the ledger, it is going to be checked to be verified with the other ledgers that are out there. And based on whether or not it passes the sniff test, if it's registered with these other nodes and they're able to match it up and say, yeah, this is a legit transaction, we can add it to the blockchain, then it is going to be adopted and it will be seen as a valid transaction. Whereas if it is something that is not validated by any other nodes, and I forget the term for that validation. I feel like there's a specific term, like not cross-validation, but in any case, that's how it's working. So it's both transparent, so everybody's able to see what's going on, but since it is relatively anonymous, and there are some debates, because I'm not going to get into that, we can use that for another episode, but for the idea is it's anonymous to an extent that it's secure. You don't know who's going on, so you're not looking into somebody's personal finances or what they're necessarily doing. But this allows these transactions to happen. And
what's interesting,
and they happen faster because the verification is basically instantaneous. It's happening on an automated level because it's computers and software doing it instead of people having to do this. And like if I write you a check, before the check is really validated, like someone in some way has to verify from one bank to another that the funds are there, that it clears. It actually takes days. Even though you write a check, I put it in my account, I'll get credited for that account. Actually, on the back end, they're kind of fronting that money until it's validated. I actually worked in a check cashing store. I completely forgot about that until
I
just
didn't
now.
know this.
Yeah, it was probably when I was like 18. So I learned a lot about the background process and how you had to and we had some people try to pass some bonus checks. So this takes away the need for me trusting you. Now we don't have to trust each other. We can be complete strangers on opposite ends of the world, and we can conduct business through this medium that is going to handle all the validation and credibility assurances.
Yeah. And, there's some debate on a lot of those points too, like the anonymity of these transactions, because since everything is out there, it's all in these public ledgers, you can see when something leaves one wallet and goes to another. And this is how this big bust the DOJ just brought in of almost $4 billion in Bitcoin. It's out there.
The alligator of Wall Street, or what was her rap name?
I don't know. I'm sure we'll do a whole episode.
We'll do an episode on that one. That was the whole thing. But yeah, you could see someone's bank account. You can get an idea of the transactions that are going in and out, but I don't necessarily know who it belongs to. However, if Michael Saylor posts on Twitter, "Hey, I just bought 50,000 Bitcoin," and you look up and find an account that at that same time just bought 50,000 Bitcoin, I think I found Michael Saylor's account.
Yeah, and also you're seeing right now, if any of you guys are on Twitter or Instagram, but probably more Twitter, you see someone that has like a name .eth. That's an ENS name, which we'll get into. It's kind of like a domain name, but for your wallet.
I didn't bring this up, but I think we should get one. We should get like a
definitely.
Just to be legit.
Yeah, heavy meta.eth, just so we can get some subs.
But now we got to get it before we post this, otherwise someone's gonna.
They're going to sit on it. You know how they do. And so that's blockchain. And it started really with Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper when he invented Bitcoin. And it was kind of groundbreaking. The idea was just to come up with a new way to transact, a new way to separate yourselves from some of these federal banks and have a way to connect with each other one-on-one. And it spawned from there. Bitcoin was the OG. Then Ethereum kind of stepped in there. There was a lot of other things going on, and some stuff was built on top of that, which has enabled a lot of these other components of Web3. And so you mentioned smart contracts, which obviously, like, it's a huge component of it. We'll have to spend probably episode about it. But from that came cryptocurrencies, which are essentially these different things that made a blockchain. They're their own blockchain. And the token became currencies. And that was the big thing. I guess it's still a big thing. But that was what everyone knew blockchains for 8 years?
Yeah, and I think they're in a good differentiator, or maybe a good explanation would be, or note, I should say, would be blockchain is what cryptocurrency is based upon, but they aren't necessarily synonymous. Blockchain is like the technology. It's the conduit, or it's the train tracks, but it's not the train. So the blockchain technology allows for cryptocurrency to exist in tokens, and but also NFTs and DAOs and all these other. And who knows what's going to be coming out in the next few years because of this new technology. It's very much like the internet being invented, and now all these things that were not possible in 1970 that are now all these business models and all these other experiences and transactions and concepts that are now possible because of the internet. Blockchain is going to be equally revolutionary.
Yeah, it's a really important concept for it, and it is the framework. It's the guide rails for everything. It's it's like the power grid, and you have electricity. Like there's so many different analogies we can use, but it's a really important component of it. But the cryptocurrencies became a big thing because essentially they were the tokens, and I'm sure we'll get into why the tokens existed in blockchains.
All right, that is going to wrap it up for this shallow dip. But if you want more information and more conversation, I invite you to check out the episode notes and our channel, because not only can you listen to the entire conversation from which this clip was stripped, but there's also going to be more episodes that do a deeper dive on this specific topic. Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to make sure you don't forget to check out the information and the links in the show notes. Some of that stuff is going to get you into freebies and raffles and contests and all sorts of other promotions, but also we've got a private group dedicated to our listeners and our followers. We would love to see you there, love to see you collaborate, join, and get exclusive content that we are only distributing through these other means. Speaking of distributing through other means, I want to make sure that you're also subscribed to our podcast, our YouTube channel, and again, join that private group so you know everything that we know as soon as we know it.